The Brew House was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewHouse.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. I'm Bill Pucko, and a thanks to Toby Matika for sitting in for me last week. Did a great job. It's our pleasure welcoming Kim Berntson from the Breakroom this week.
Thanks for having me.
Mike Catalana and Pat Duffy co-hosting. Let's get right. Oh, wait, uniform. Always check out the uniform. What are you wearing?
Well, pitchers and catchers this week. So Rochester Red Wings throwback by Ebbets Field flannels. Bob Gibson. I love this sweater. I love it.
What is this? The red carpet? What are you wearing?
Well, yeah, it's a thing.
Every
now.
week.
Thanks for watching the show. Appreciate it.
Number 45.
Bob Gibson.
Circa.
I think it's the mid 50s to early 60s. I'm not entirely sure.
Thank God that one almost fits.
Wow.
Hey, the NBA All-Star Game is this weekend. They're playing it in New Orleans instead of Charlotte. And they're playing it there because the NBA had a problem with the gay lesbian issue in a bill that was passed by, it's standing in North Carolina, which points again to the fact that there's a lot of intermingling between politics and sports figures, sports teams, and leagues. Is this a good thing?
I mean, I commend the NBA for taking a stand on an issue like that, but I don't think it's going to have any effect whatsoever on what the ultimate outcome of the decision is. I do think there are some things where I'm okay with them saying I don't feel that this is right, and especially if players feel the same way, then I understand it.
Mike?
Yeah, I would say that if the NBA really wanted to put its foot down, then you put pressure on Charlotte as a franchise. While I agree that they should support in the inclusiveness, I think it's a little bit of grandstanding by the NBA. You have a franchise in Charlotte.
What?
You have a franchise in Charlotte. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm saying let's put more pressure on the franchise.
What about...
Because all you're doing is taking away one game.
What about millionaire Adam Silver and a bunch of billionaire owners taking a game away from another millionaire is grandstanding? Let's put it this way, right? It looks great on paper, right,
Yeah.
Bill? Look at the great thing we're doing. Hey, there are people that make minimum wage that work in the arena in Charlotte. And there are people that make minimum wage that work in those hotels that all of the fans and players were going to stay in. Those people may not agree with what's going on there either, but they can't move. You're taking money out of the pockets of blue-collar, everyday people to look good and make a point when really it affects you in no way. No one's going to criticize you for taking a political stance or a social stance that most everybody else agrees with. All it does is hurt people that were counting on that money to begin with, and I think it makes you look stupid for doing so.
I have to say this again. Thank you for articulating what I attempted to say. That's such a, it's a rare thing.
But on the other hand, he says, but Duffy says, and I don't know that it's correct, given the present political situation, is that this is an issue that everybody is on board with.
Once you start down that road of I'm going to take a stand on political issues, where do you cut it off, and what's more important? What issue is more important than the other issue? To the point where there's a lot of places that you might avoid then if you're going to go down that road.
Well, let's look at it this way. Silver has been the commissioner that says you can do whatever you want and make a stand if you're a player and do whatever. And it was easy for them to get behind the Black Lives Matter movement because, 85% of the league is black. What happens when somebody decides they are anti-abortion and they want to wear a T-shirt that says so on the sideline? What do you do then, Adam Silver? Because now you're legitimately splitting your fan base, and you can't point to one person and call them racist. Well, this is a divisive issue that has both religious and economic and political undertone. Make a decision now, smart guy.
I think that's the heart of the problem.
Yeah. Well, it depends. And I think sometimes, right now, in this certain environment, they're going to be on the side of the issues that are relatively easy to support nationally, right? Whether in North Carolina it's a bigger issue, but nationally what they're doing here, I think, has national support. Because for most people, it doesn't impact them. The NBA is going to be on that side because that's the way Silver's chosen.
Is this fundamentally different than 5 New England Patriots saying they won't go to the White House?
Yes. By those guys saying they're not going to go to the White House, if they're hurt at all, they only hurt themselves. Adam Silver has put every franchise and player in the NBA under the blanket of we are not going to support what's happening in Charlotte.
Well, and the players thing, I mean, that's individual. I mean, that's also happened in the past too, and I don't think it falls so much on the look of the NBA or that team. It's people start focusing on the individuals and their personal decisions.
Yeah, I would say that the whole, first of all, maybe it's another subject, but I'm a little tired of everybody visiting the White House anyhow. I think that thing has gotten old anyhow. But now, because it's become this political thing, I mean, the Patriots are going to go there because Trump loves the Patriots and he's going to have them there. I think if a guy wants to stay home, stay home. I think to some extent you're missing out on an opportunity to be there with your team in the White House. But if you feel that strongly, as these guys said, it's you as an individual.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. We're talking Bills next. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. We're talking Buffalo Bills. We've got the draft isn't until the end of April. It gives us a lot of time, but it doesn't seem to ever be too early to discuss what the Bills ought to be doing right now.
Well, because what they do now is going to impact what they do in the draft. At least it could impact it. And the biggest thing is Tyrod, right? What are you going to do with the quarterback? I think it'll signal a lot about the franchise, depending on what they do with Tyrod. I believe that there is the possibility to do this, which would be re-sign Tyrod, whether rework his deal or pay him what you have already agreed to, at least going forward, but still be looking to the future. Because basically that contract for Tyrod is 2 pretty heavy years, $30 million guaranteed, and it's big cap money for those 2 years. But if you draft another quarterback, what's preventing them from doing both?
Here's your problem. You already drafted a quarterback last year. You got a project in Cardale Jones sitting there. So you have a situation where you re-sign Tyrod. Cardale Jones is your primary backup quarterback, and you have a project you have to keep on the roster because you can't waive him because he's going to get picked up.
Well, I'm not saying he's the project. I'm saying you draft a guy that maybe isn't quite ready to play this year. Again, if you feel that strongly about Cardale Jones and he's that guy, then maybe you already have that plan in place. But I don't think a rookie or Cardale Jones is ready to start this year. So they have a big decision to make.
I don't think so either. So why have 2 guys that aren't ready to play? Why have 2 projects going on at the same time? I think at this point in the draft, you're going to take the best guy who's going to come in and make an impact right away. But again, it is going to depend on what they do with Tyrod. And it's tough to look at the draft so far ahead, but everybody does. People look at the draft a year ahead, and it's impossible to predict, and I think we'll know more about it in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm a huge mock draft guy. I enjoy this. They do these pie graphs. It's like they break down, and they've got 27 of these mock drafts, and they analyze them and all this. Half the people out there, I mean, all reputable people, are picking the Bills to take a quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, well, it's because of 2 things. One, they think they've already made a decision on Tyrod, and 2, they don't have faith in Cardale Jones. Now, maybe the Bills do. I don't know. You know, he really is a project as a 4th rounder because of his limited amount of time. So you wonder, are they thinking of Cardale as a potential starter? If they are, I would think he's a ways away. And then, what are you doing with Tyrod? So that's why I think it's a pretty easy choice if you look at Buffalo and say, oh, they need a quarterback. Because I think most mock drafts, any team that needs a quarterback, they're going to have them picking a quarterback.
That's also assuming the best quarterback's going to be available where they pick. So let's say they do want to go full out with a quarterback. They might have to give up something to get up there to get that guy.
I mean, listen, the smart thing to do would be what Seattle did. I mean, listen, you hold on to Tyrod, you draft somebody else, like Seattle signing Matt Flynn and drafting Russell Wilson. But there are so many holes in that team, you could legitimately draft any position, the best player there, and you're fine. So I don't know. I don't know. It's above my pay grade. I don't know. God, I hate everything.
It is a new coach. It's sort of a restart if you really want to look at it. If you're going to do that, then you don't re-sign Tyrod. You go with pick your journeyman. I'm telling you.
The journeyman thing gets very old.
This is the Rochester Press Box. This portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like it or not, next. The The Press Box Trivia Question brought to you by Sleep City. Queen adjustable bed with memory foam mattress, now $977. Save over $500. Shop Rochester's only locally owned mattress store. No pressure, no hassle sales experience. Here's a look at the Press Box Trivia answer brought to you by Sleep City. Queen adjustable bed with memory foam mattress. Now $977. You save over $500. Shop Rochester's only locally owned mattress store. No pressure, no hassle sales experience. See New York in a whole new way. Amtrak is offering a 15% discount for all travel inside New York State and to Montreal. Visit Amtrak.com for the See New York discount. Safe, comfortable, affordable, and easy. Amtrak. Enjoy the journey. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Like it or not, Pat, Jersey man, Tom Brady's jersey is still missing.
So you know this thing could be worth upwards of $250,000, like legitimately.
You
like
would know.
Well, but like one that he just wore in a regular game sold at auction for $50,000. That's just a regular ass game. This is the 7th Super Bowl, 5th ring. I mean, this thing, he has it somewhere. You know this is a scam, right?
Conspiracy.
No, I'm telling you, there is no way that this team, especially in the world we live in today, where every one of these NFL jerseys that goes on these guys' backs has a barcode on it, that's legit. There was a barcode on every NFL game jersey that lets you know where it was worn, who wore it, at what time during the game. Somebody has it that knows where it is. Tom Brady knows where it is, and he likes the attention. Tell me I'm wrong.
It does seem odd that somebody would conspire to steal this jersey, because you would have to have planned it a little bit in advance, I'm assuming, if you're gonna, steal Tom Brady's jersey. So maybe there's something to Tom Brady had a hand in this.
How much money did Tom Brady make last year? He and his wife made what? $100 million or something. Is he really gonna do that?
It's not about the money.
Oh, okay.
It's about the attention.
Yeah,
and
he doesn't get enough attention.
No, poor Tom Brady. He never gets poor Tom Brady. You've been to Super Bowls before?
Yep.
How hard is it to move around inside that stadium, even when you have credentials?
It is, but I would say if there's one time when it is sort of chaos, is right at the end of a game.
What are you going to do with it when you get it? You can't sell it anywhere. The second it shows up, you're arrested. Tom Brady has that jersey.
We're breaking news here.
Tom Brady has the jersey.
Mike, like it or not, UConn has won 100 straight women's basketball.
I like it and I dislike it. Here's why I like it. Phenomenal accomplishment. Gino Auriemma is a great coach to keep those players so motivated. What I don't like about it is you and I are old enough to remember UCLA. It's when college basketball was boring. They won all the time. They're too good for their sport. So that's what I don't like about it. I mean, you watch a game and there's part of you is like, well, maybe the other team could win. Well, on a rare occasion, they are challenged. I think it has made the sport boring. And for most of the women, it is, look, they play in the WNBA, but they don't make the money that the men make in the NBA and all that. So there's a thought for the top college, high school players to go there and they all play together and Gino does a great job. But it's a little, they're going to win again, right? I mean, does anybody think they're not going to win again?
Oh, no, I think that they're going to remain a dominant team for a while. And I think that's great for young girls, and it gives them something to look up to and aspire to be. I don't think it does a great thing for the sport in general in terms of respect, because if you tell anybody the UConn women's team is this great, phenomenal team, well, then they argue, well, what does the rest of the league look like? They must all stink, and there's only so many girls that can play this game that are going to be that dominant.
Yeah, well, you've got this Nancy Armour out there, USA Today, who takes on all the women's causes in the sport page and says, this is as good as anything that's ever been done.
I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm impressed that winning 100 times is phenomenally amazing. But, I mean, listen, it's not the competition of NCAA men's basketball. Is that a terrible thing to say? The truth?
Right. Good
for you. That's great. Gino Auriemma is a phenomenal coach, but come on, it's not UCLA.
I would be curious if, there's the women's bracket for the tournament, people can fill out and all. What percentage of people fill in UConn to win the championship?
All 100?
Well, I mean,
unless your kid plays for another team.
So that's why I say, while it is impressive, I do think it hurts. It would be great, even if they had one major rival where it was going to be the two of them.
It used to be Tennessee.
It used to be, but it's not. And there's other teams. There's other teams that are good players. But if they were down just a notch, I remember UCLA losing to Notre Dame. I was a kid. It was unbelievable that they actually lost. They had won 88 in a row.
35 as a kid?
You're so mean.
What?
This portion of the Rochester Press Box brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Unfinished Business is next. The Press Box Stat of the Week brought to you by Fiondoc and Fiondoc. Remember, if you've made the wrong choice, it's time to make the right choice. Fiondoc and Fiondoc, New York's DWI leader for over 35 years. Visit nydwi.com. Hearts are made for sharing. Spread some sweetness with Dunkin's new chocolate-covered raspberry and brownie battered donuts. It's heart-shaped happiness too sweet not to share. America runs on Dunkin'. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. Our favorite segment brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Unfinished business, Pat.
Claude Julien was fired by the Boston Bruins as their head coach last week and signed a couple days later by the Montreal Canadiens, who fired their own head coach, Therrien, to get Claude Julien. The NHL has a program called You Can Play, where they want to include everybody they can, gay, straight, into the game of hockey. And the NHL also does the thing, it's a traditionally white and middle class sport. They focus on folks that don't look white and middle class. PK Subban, black hockey player down in Nashville. Scotty Gomez for a while, Latino but from Alaska. Very interesting. They do everything they can to make sure everybody has a chance to play this game, which is why it is so interesting. They never say a word that the Montreal Canadiens only hire French-speaking head coaches. As a matter of fact, there's a guy in this town. You're the head coach of the Rochester Americans last season, Randy Cunneyworth, who was the interim head coach in Montreal and was run out of town because he didn't speak French. In fact, there were boycotts organized against the Montreal Canadiens because he didn't speak French. You can play unless it's in Quebec and you don't speak French. How this league completely overlooks the fact that there is obvious discrimination in giving somebody a job is ludicrous, and nobody calls them on it. Nobody.
Yeah, and the bad thing with Randy is he had already signed there as an assistant coach, was there. They made this move. Boom, he gets elevated to this job, and that onslaught hit him before he had even coached his first game.
And he's a great coach.
Right.
The guy can coach.
Is it fair, in a line, is it fair to consider the marketability of the team with a guy that doesn't speak, with a guy whose primary language isn't French?
Not when you have all these other programs, including everybody else.
Kim.
Well, it was about a week ago where Kevin Durant made his triumphant return to Oklahoma City, only this time he was obviously in a Golden State Warriors jersey. And it was fun to watch the circus. You got to see all the cupcake shirts and, the boos against Durant and, people shouting obscene things at him and apparently his mother. But the thing is, at some point as a fan, you have to take a step back and appreciate the things that guy did for your city. I mean, this guy donated millions of dollars into programs and relief efforts when the tornadoes rolled through. I mean, it showed that he really did care about the people in that city, and not to mention, he put that city on the map in terms of the NBA. And I get that you feel abandoned. Trust me, it's a legitimate feeling. But at some point, again, you do have to appreciate what he's done for you, and maybe, okay, Russell Westbrook might have a little bit of a gripe, and that he wasn't completely honest with him about staying there and kind of left him out to dry. But you never know. One day that guy might return to your city. I mean, crazier things have happened in the NBA, and you might be eating your words later on down the road.
Telling a sports fan to smarten up is often a futile a
I
futile
get
call.
it. It's passion, but you do have to. You never know where the future brings you.
Yeah, how about LeBron James?
Exactly.
Burning his jersey and back there
Exactly.
winning a title for them. So, all right, 17 years, that's the biggest problem. That's what I see with the Bills. It's that 17-year thing that hangs over every fan, everybody who talks about this team. And I don't want that 17-year drought to be a reason that the Bills make bad decisions. Look, they're not good enough. And I look back at these last 17 years, and I looked at even the better teams of that group, and not a single one of them ever would have really challenged to be a Super Bowl team. They would have just snuck in the playoffs. But I wonder what would happen if they did sneak in, say 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 9 years ago, 6 years ago. We didn't have 17 hanging over our head. And I think there is a desperation with a lot of fans, and I hope it's not with the organization, to just get in the playoffs and get that streak out of the way. But we know that shouldn't be the goal. The goal isn't to make the playoffs. The goal is to win the Super Bowl. And every thought this team has now with a new head coach should be focused on winning the Super Bowl, not sneaking in to the playoffs. 17 years is too long, we know it. But if in 3 years you have a Super Bowl team, it's a lot better than a playoff team in year 18.
That's our show. This portion of the Rochester Press Box, Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Kim, thanks for joining us. Good to have you back.
Thanks again for having me.
Mike,
Thank
good
you.
show. Pat,
Felt like I won the Snooper Bowl.
I knew that would come back. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for the Rochester Press Box.